The book of Hebrews is one of the most carefully built letters in the entire New Testament, and it was written to answer one painful question. Is Jesus still worth holding on to when life gets hard? To understand Hebrews, you first have to understand the people who received it. This letter was not written into empty space. It was written to real people facing real pressure. And once you see the pressure they were under, the whole letter changes. It stops sounding like theology. It starts sounding like survival. Nobody knows for sure who wrote Hebrews. The writer never tells us his name. Some believed it was Paul. Others suggested Barnabas, Apollos, or Priscilla. But the truth is simple. We do not know. But one thing is clear. Whoever wrote this letter understood the Hebrew scriptures deeply, and they knew exactly how to speak to hurting people. The letter was written to Jewish Christians, people who grew up inside Judaism. People shaped by the law, the temple, the priests, and the sacrifices. This was their whole world, their identity, their way of understanding God. But then they encountered Jesus, and everything changed. They believed he was not destroying their faith, but fulfilling it. But now they were living in dangerous times. The Roman Empire was becoming more hostile toward Christians, and following Jesus was starting to cost them deeply. People were losing jobs. Families were breaking apart. Some were losing safety itself. The writer reminds them of how strong they once were, back when their faith was fresh and alive, back when they endured suffering with courage. Some of them were publicly insulted. Some watched their friends thrown into prison. Others lost their property completely. And somehow, in those early days, they endured it with joy, because their faith burned brightly. Their hope felt close and real. But now the years had passed. The excitement was fading, and the pressure had only grown heavier. Some of them were quietly thinking about walking away, not from religion completely, but from Jesus. The old system was still there. The temple still stood. The sacrifices still continued every day. Returning to Judaism would make life easier. It was legal under Roman law, and it would remove much of the pressure. Maybe they could still keep the spirit of Jesus, without openly following him. So the author of Hebrews writes this letter, not to shame them, not to attack them, but to lovingly remind them what they are about to lose. And the entire letter builds toward one conclusion. Jesus is better, better than angels, better than Moses, better than priests, sacrifices, and even the temple itself. And if Jesus truly is better, then going back is not harmless. It means leaving the real thing for the shadow. The letter opens with one of the greatest statements in the New Testament. Long ago, God spoke through the prophets. But now, he has spoken through his Son. Moses spoke. Isaiah spoke. Ezekiel spoke. But every voice was pointing forward to Jesus. The writer says Jesus is greater than the angels themselves. The angels serve him. They worship him. Then the writer says something shocking. Jesus is greater than Moses. Moses faithfully served in God's house. But Jesus is the son over the house. Moses pointed forward. Jesus is the destination. Then the letter moves to the heart of the problem. Human beings long to come near to God, but sin stands in the way. So God created the priesthood. Priests stood between the people and God. They offered sacrifices for sin. And once every year, on the Day of Atonement, the high priest entered the Holy of Holies alone. It was the closest any person could come to the presence of God. And when the priest came back out, the people knew their relationship with God still stood. But there was one problem. The sacrifices never truly finished the work. Every year the whole process had to begin again. The law was never meant to be the final answer. It was a shadow pointing towards something greater still to come. And this is where Melchizedek enters the story. A mysterious priest most people barely notice when reading Genesis. After a battle, Abraham meets this strange figure called the King of Salem and priest of God Most High. Melchizedek brings bread and wine. He blesses Abraham, and Abraham honors him deeply. And then suddenly, he disappears from the story. No family record, no beginning, no ending. Later, Psalm 110 says the coming king would be a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. The priesthood of Jesus would not end like the others. It would last forever. The writer of Hebrews says this is exactly who Jesus is. He did not bring the blood of animals. He offered himself, and he did it once, not again and again. Not a sacrifice that needed repeating. A final sacrifice. Hebrews says Jesus appeared once for all time to destroy sin through the sacrifice of himself. Day after day, the priests kept standing. Again and again, they offered the same sacrifices, because the work was never finished. But after Jesus offered one sacrifice for sin forever, he sat down at the right hand of God. The priests always stood because there was always more work to do. But Jesus sat down because the work was finished. The distance between God and humanity had finally been closed. Completely. Permanently. But the writer does not stop there. He gives one of the most comforting truths in the entire letter. We do not have a high priest who is distant from our pain. We have one who understands weakness from the inside. Jesus knows hunger, exhaustion, grief, betrayal, rejection. The writer says Jesus was tempted in every way we are, yet he never sinned. That means Jesus does not look at your struggle with disgust. He is not impatient with your weakness. He knows what life feels like where you are standing right now, and he knows exactly what you need. Mercy and grace are not waiting for you after you improve yourself. They are available in your moment of need. So the writer says something shocking. Come to God with confidence, because the one waiting for you is not cold or distant. He understands, and he is not going anywhere. Now the writer turns from teaching to direct appeal. He has shown them who Jesus is. Now he pleads with them to hold on. Do not throw away your confidence. Do not let go now. The writer is honest. Perseverance is difficult. Holding on to faith costs something. The writer reaches back through history, and he begins naming people who held on before them. Faith is not empty wishing. It is confidence in what God has promised before you can fully see it. Faith is the evidence that what God promised is already real, even before it arrives. Then the names begin to roll out. Abel, Noah, Abraham, Sarah, Moses, David, the prophets. Some were mocked. Some were beaten. Some were imprisoned. Some were killed. Some wandered through deserts wearing animal skins. Some lived in caves. And the writer says the world was not worthy of them. Many of them died before seeing the promise fulfilled, but they still held on. The writer says all of them are still waiting for the same final completion we are waiting for now. The believers reading Hebrews were part of a story stretching all the way back to Abel, and the writer begs them not to step out of it now. Then comes one of the most famous images in the letter. A great cloud of witnesses surrounding the people of God. These witnesses are not just watching. Their lives are speaking. Every one of them is evidence that faith is worth it. Noah says keep building even when people laugh at you. Abraham says keep walking even when you do not know where the road leads. All of them are saying the same thing. We held on. So can you. Then the writer gives the final instruction. Fix your eyes on Jesus. Jesus is the pioneer of faith, the one who walked the path first. And he is the one who will bring faith to its final completion. He walked through Gethsemane, through the cross, through the silence of the tomb, and through resurrection. And after finishing the race, he sat down at the right hand of God. And he knows exactly how hard your race feels, because he has already run it himself. Hebrews is not just a complicated theological book. It is a compassionate letter written to tired people who were close to letting go. The old covenant was real, but it was only the shadow. Jesus is the substance behind it all. Jesus entered the true Holy of Holies with his own blood, and then he sat down forever. Walking away from Jesus is not moving sideways. It is trading reality for shadows. You have a finished sacrifice, a seated priest, an open door to grace, and the voices of generations are all saying the same thing. Hold on. If your faith feels tired right now, Hebrews was written for you. The answer is not trying harder to feel something. The answer is remembering what is already true. A finished sacrifice, a seated priest, an open door, an anchor for the soul. And if you have been slowly drifting away, Hebrews speaks to that too. The writer says pay careful attention so you do not drift away. Hope in Jesus is an anchor for the soul, not something that removes storms, something that holds you through them. And if you are watching this from outside the faith, unsure, curious, skeptical, this is not a God hiding from you. This is a God who opened the door through his Son. So come to the throne of grace with confidence. Mercy is waiting there. Once you understand what Hebrews is doing, every verse begins to land differently. And if you know someone who is tired, someone quietly letting go, send this to them. Because the message of Hebrews is this: the door is still open.